Breakdowns from the elections 2023. This is the Pacific Coast Election Special on 531 PI.
Kia ora, kia orana, whakalowhalahi atu mālo le lei ni Sambula, talo hani, talo whakoe, kem the mauri, halo ke te one talk karake nako mai, halo nem belong, mālo le soifua maua e male langi e mama, and a very warm welcome family to the Pacific Post Election Special, Sunday the 15th of October. We're keeping you company through to 2 o'clock this afternoon, as we always do, well, being a great Pacifica event. Well, I think it's going to be great. Kalo, I'm going to ask you to open us up in prayer this afternoon. Thank you.
Malo Alpito O'Brien, malo elele ke tau loto. Tamai mafi ko mapuno he hoa tā koe ni koe whawhitai me whakamalo lahi ka te koe a Fiona. Whakataha mai ki mātolu ke whakalele polo kalama koe ni, ke whoaki ha ngahi polo kalama lelei mai kakai Pasifiki, mau whiewhia i he whiri ko osi, pia mau kore ka te koe, ke ki hanga pe o tataki, ai kautaki o amanaki ke nau hanga o tataki e whanua ko ia ko Aotearoa. Pia mau ofa ke te koe a Fiona, ke ki hanga pe o whoaki mai lelei ka tek nau tolu, ke nau whai pe nau lelei taha ma ai taha kotoa pe inu silani. Mau kore katoa ngā miani, sisu kalais koe mau whamui. Amen.
Amen. And also we just want to acknowledge today is the first day of Whahitapu e Wangahau Niue Language Week 2023. And our theme this year, Whakatau lewa e Wangahau Niue mo e tau anga whakamotu mai e tau atu hau. Sustain Niue language and culture for future generations. And of course, AB's taking out the quarterfinals against the Irish this morning, eh? Come on. Zombie! So congratulations to the ABs. Come on.
Ma'alai.
The I wish. Welcome. I'm Brian Sangala, co-host of Pacific Days. Joining me this afternoon, of course, Carol Ann Kalo Toituu, Morning Soul host, as well as PMN News election specialist Justin Latif. And we'll be joined later on by a political reporter, PMN News political reporter, Taurofa Tua. Coming to you live this afternoon, family, via our 531 PI national network, live streaming across all our Facebook channels, YouTube channel, and our website, our flash new website, pmn.co.nz. And of course, we welcome your thoughts, your comments on our live stream. Feel free to comment on our Facebook comment section. Now, New Zealand went to the polls yesterday, and it's clear that voters want a change, with the National Party set to form a new government with the ACT Party. The preliminary results have National on 38.9% of the vote, with Labour down to 26.9%, while the Green Party got 10.7%, ACT 9%, New Zealand First back in Parliament was 6.4%, and Te Māori Party 2.6% of the party votes, but more importantly, won 4 electorate seats. Reactions from last night's results. Firstly to you, Justin.
Yeah, Bulumanaka Brian, great to be here. A very, I guess, surprising result. If you were watching the polls, you would have been expecting Labour to do a little bit better and National probably to be more around the 37%. So that was probably the biggest surprise. And I guess the other big takeaway is, a few of our Pacific MPs are going to be ending their political careers following the election.
Kalo, your thoughts?
Malo lele, malo tau te mai hoatani. First of all, thank you for putting me on the spot with the opening prayer.
Okay.
Yep.
Hand off my shoulder, please. That's good.
Blessing, brother, blessing.
Come on.
But I was actually quite shocked when I turned on the TV at 7 and it was already at 40%. I was like, oh wow, it's going to be a blue wave. Because I remember last election, as soon as it started, it was like Labour, and now it's the other side of the party. It's blue all over.
Yeah, and I guess what was really interesting is how late National, they won so many electorates. They won 45 electorate seats, and in some areas that normally Labour wins, like Mount Roskill, Te Aratū, even in some of the seats like Upper Harbour Highway where they've won in the past, and even down in Wellington we saw Therese Ngobi. She's looking like she's going to be leaving Parliament, and Otaki's gone to National. So again, a lot of big changes in out in the areas, in the regions. Yeah, and I guess the thing a big takeaway that for me was, there was someone who said during the election campaign that National always wins when the All Blacks win the World Cup. And there's one thing we can take from this result. The All Blacks won this morning, and maybe that bodes well for them.
It's interesting just with regards to watching. I watched Chris Hipkins in the in his concession speech last night. He was talking about. He talked about this analogy about how the wave or the tide comes in and it invariably, goes out. And it's interesting, watching the coverage last night, hearing terms like the blue nami, the blue bus, the blue wave, and I just thought of one now. The Blue Bayou, hey. We're going back someday. Come what may to Blue Bayou. You know that one, Justin?
Yeah, I'll leave the singing to you.
Yeah.
But blue like jazz is another.
Okay.
There's a lot of blue out there, and a lot of people be feeling like a bit blue today.
Oh,
on both sides of the aisle. So blue is probably the colour of the election for a lot of whether you're a Labour or a National supporter.
It's very sad. I was watching, just the look of despair on Chris Hipkins' face. When he was leaving his house last night, and there was like no supporters at all, and giving his speech. It must be very hard, when you know you've lost an election, but then you have to front up to media. They're not going to take it lightly on you and some of the questions in that. But I thought he did very well, and very gracious in defeat. And then we go to the other side. Christopher Luxon, what was that chant that they were something back during his victory speech? Got the crowds chanting and stuff like that. So
I actually enjoyed Christopher Luxon's speech. The part where he said, thank you to all of you that voted for National, and we will take care of you, and also for the people that didn't vote for National, we will, look after you as well.
Move forward for all Kiwis.
Yes.
So over the next 2 hours, we're going to examine what impact the election result will have on our Pacific communities, who's going to represent the Pacific communities in Parliament over the next 3 years and who missed out. And throughout the show, we'll be talking with candidates and politicians from various parties. And Kalo, of course, will be giving us news updates throughout the next 2 hours. So over the next half hour, we're going to be joined by Labour's Kelston MP, Carmel Sepuloni. ACT Party leader David Seymour will also be joining us. But let's go to our first news bulletin of the afternoon. Thank you, Kalo.
Malo, Brian. The National Party is poised to form the next government after winning almost 40% of the party vote in the general election. Its triumphant leader, Christopher Luxon, told a cheering crowd of National Party members in Auckland last night that New Zealand had voted for change.
Thank you. Thank you so much, team. Thank you so much. And thank you, New Zealand, because from all over your country, this great country, you have reached for hope and you have voted for change.
In his speech, Prime Minister-elect Luxon pledged to deliver for every New Zealander, regardless of ethnicity, in the areas of education, health and justice reform.
And I am immensely proud to say that on the numbers tonight, National will be in a position to lead the next government. My pledge to you is that our government will deliver for every New Zealander, because we will rebuild the economy and deliver tax relief. We will bring down the cost of living. We will restore law and order, deliver better health care, and we will educate our children so that they can grow up to live the lives that they dream of.
Luxon also thanked Labour leader Chris Hipkins for calling to concede. He said he'd also spoken to ACT's David Seymour and New Zealand First Leader Winston Peters, who told Luxon that he was willing to help where needed. It was clear by 8 p.m, an hour after polls closed, that Labour were going to lose. Shortly after 10:40 p.m, in an emotional speech, Hipkins told the party faithful that he had rung Luxon to congratulate him.
The result tonight is not one that any of us wanted. But I want you to be proud of what we achieved over the last 6 years. Because despite governing through some of the biggest challenges our country has ever faced, we kept New Zealand moving forward and we protected those who needed help the most.
Hipkins listed the challenges the Labour government had faced while leading the country since 2017.
I honestly think the gods ran out of curveballs to throw at us. Terrorist attacks, volcanoes, cyclones and floods, and of course the COVID-19 global pandemic and the global cost of living crisis that followed. Despite these huge forces against us, through it all, we made a difference. We saved lives and recorded the lowest number of COVID deaths in the developed world.
With the counts counted so far, National have won 50 seats, Labour 34, the Greens 14, ACT are on 11 seats, New Zealand First are on 8 seats, and Te Pāti Māori have 4 seats.
Whakawelahi mahaki, Kalo, very good. It's interesting, one of the big talking points from last night with regards to Auckland as an electorate and how seeing, that blue wave overtaking other than the traditionally strongholds such as Mangere, Manurewa,
Pamio Tahu.
Yeah, and one of the talking points with regards to the dissatisfaction by Aucklanders, especially around that second lockdown or 3 weeks where, Aucklanders had pretty much had enough, and they last night spoke their frustration through the polling booths. Now,
yeah, I mean, just on that, I went back through all the polling over the last 3 years.
Wow.
And what you can see is actually the first poll that National wins is in January of 2021, which is just after that lockdown ended. And it was just before the protest. So it's interesting that voters have really held on in some ways to that frustration. And I don't think it's just people who are frustrated about the mandates or the vaccines, but also the economy, the impact of that, the impact of the immigration laws, the impact of those types of things, the cost of living that was a result of COVID has kind of had this long tail. And so Labour has just not been able to kind of make a clean break between being a COVID government and kind of being at the next phase of whatever their government was going to be.
I think the frustration started really when people, were trying to get back into the country with family, a mother or father passing away, and it was really, really hard for them to get into the country. And if they did, they had to quarantine, and if they would miss the funeral, they missed the fact that they could not say goodbye to their loved one. And I know there was a page on Facebook that they started, sharing their frustration, and I believe they even tried to, a lawsuit or some sort. I can't remember, but I just remembered that's when the turning point really after COVID, when the frustration started building.
It's interesting when you mention that, Kalo, looking back at a lot of the news reports, it was just so heartbreaking. I remember seeing one particular one of the Tongan funeral outside of Manukau Memorial Grounds. The gates are closed and they just open up the gates just for the hearse to come through, and literally the wailing. Thinking about the wailing and just the impacts. What do you make of the Jacinda Ardern effect?
I mean, I think that was, what was so hard for Chris Hipkins is that Jacinda's, she was very popular with a group of people, but she also became incredibly unpopular. And so she was almost like in some ways she motivated people to be almost more anti-Labour. And you saw as soon as Chris Hipkins took over, Labour actually started to rise again in the polls. But then he had Kitty Allen with her drink, with the issue with the police, and Michael Wood had his issue, and you had Nash with his issue. And so you had like one issue, and he could never set out his agenda because every second week he was also apologising or disciplining someone or trying to explain a mistake. And so the momentum that he had right at the start was lost almost immediately by these scandals. And
You're absolutely right about Jacinda, because I remember, when she first, she was just a charismatic, leader, and when she was able to, if there was something happened, she was the perfect person to get in front of the camera and unite the country together. But I think how people started to change was trying to show compassion for her when they were trying to get into the country and to see their loved ones. And that's when everyone started going, oh, you talk about being kind and compassionate, but why can't go and say goodbye to my father or my grandmother, so...
a lot being made also just with regards to the campaign, on the campaign trail by the two leaders of the main parties, and a bit of muckraking, you know, a bit of scaremongering there, and going on the personal attacks, and how would you say, Justin, it sort of backfired because, you know, sort of at the last tack, Christopher Luxon changes and starts talking about unity, bringing the country together, you know, being able to move forward from the issues that we currently find ourselves in as a nation.
Yeah, I mean, I think watching all the debates, it was really clear that Luxon had a message of trying to be really positive. And he was, you know, if you were cynical, you say he didn't often have a lot of detail, but he tried to stick to a positive message. And I think for Hipkins, you could say he played the ball he played the man rather than the ball.
Yeah.
You know, there's some big policy challenges that Labour probably could have tackled, and instead they really tried to make it a campaign about fear of what will National take away from you, rather than saying these are the things we will offer. And much of that was related, I think, a lot of people will look back in the decision not to go for a wealth tax, which probably would have been very unpopular with National voters, but it would have given people who wanted to see a big change in terms of like child poverty and housing and health, all these sort of things, they could have used that as a way of saying, well, create a point of difference. And that was probably one potential thing you might look back on as a mistake.
Well, Te Pāti Māori, if we look, you know, they had a great night last night, and one of the things watching the coverage last night, talking about how they've been uncompromising in their, you know, in their stance, in their values, unapologetic, which has actually drawn a number of, Māori to vote for them, eh? Interesting. Finest of margins last night. Justin, I want you to talk to us, give an explainer around special votes and how it works, because it seems like, especially with the special votes about a few weeks away, we're looking at about maybe 500,000 special votes still to be counted, which traditionally go, you know, left to the left. Take us through that. How does that work?
Yeah, so based on, so we've had 2.2 million people made their votes prior to election day. Now, special votes are people who go into a polling booth and haven't enrolled, and so you basically enroll just before you vote, and that's a special vote, plus everyone who's a New Zealand citizen overseas who isn't, so they send their vote in, and so those will take up to 2 weeks to be counted, I believe, and that can be as much as 500, well, we're expecting 567,000 special votes, which is 20% of the total vote. In the past, that has favoured the Greens particularly. A lot of, there were a big population in the UK and Australia who tend to be more Green Party aligned for whatever reason, and so we you know, usually that means that the Greens usually get one extra MP, but there's a lot of really tight races. So we've got Angie Nichols in Te Aratu. She's winning by 30 votes at the moment.
Wow.
Now if Phil Twyford, who's the Labour Party candidate there, was to get 35 votes via special, she's suddenly out of Parliament, or maybe she'll increase her lead, but it's super tight, and that's really one of probably the closest race to watch, and the specials could really affect that as well.
How does it work with the minor parties for those that haven't reached the 5% threshold now?
They will be licking their wounds. I mean, you've got to have roughly 140,000 to get to that 5%, and none of the minor parties are close to that. So that, I mean, when we're talking minor parties, we're talking the parties that are below that 5%. So the New Zealand Loyal Party, New Zealand, Freedom's New Zealand, they've all fallen short, and so they'll be having to reassess about their strategy and where did they go wrong.
You hear this term a lot, wasted vote. What actually happens with those party votes now? I understand, so it's redistribute.
No, it's not.
Well,
that's just that's the vote. That if you didn't make the 5%, those votes are not wasted. It sends a message to, say, for Alfred Naro, he's won 12,000 votes, party votes. Now that's going to give him a bit of confidence, saying, in 100 days he pulled together a new party and managed to beat quite a number of the other smaller parties who actually had much longer, like Freedom New Zealand had a big operation and got less votes than Alfred. So, but yeah, in another way to look at it is, yes, maybe they are wasted. But I think every vote counts because it sends a message to the people who maybe did win that this is a group that you've got to recognise. I mean, if you add up all the minor party votes, it's still a significant number, and every vote does say something about your values and what you're supporting.
Talking about values, opportunities, party top, 46,000 votes. It's not too bad.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it's always the question is, well, for the resource we put in, did we get the return? And, they used to be funded by a quite wealthy, I think, guy called Gareth Morgan. I don't know if he's still involved, but for the new leader, Raf Manji, he will be questioning all the effort he's put in, and he missed also out on winning in the seat of Ilam in Christchurch. So, maybe it's time for them to look at other avenues to get their policies in, and maybe that's working closer with someone like the Greens, who they have a lot of alignment with, but they've obviously decided they're not close enough to be part of the Greens. So those are some of the conversations these minor parties are going to be having.
It's an interesting point last night by Paula Bennett with regards to the number of electorates, that when you win more electorates, you actually get more resources. Which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah.
I thank you for that. Thank you for that, guys. We're going to come back to you. So we are now joining us via Zoom on our election special. A very warm welcome to the show, Kelston MP and current Deputy Prime Minister Carmel Asepoloni Malosoi Fui Losasunga. Carmel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Kalo lava.
Well, initial reaction from you firstly with regards to last night's results, Carmel.
Oh, look, we have to be gracious in defeat. Clearly, there were some reflections for us, but also low turnout, which is concerning. It was always going to be my number one concern that our Pacific people were not part of the decision making on October 14. We've been through some difficult times, and I think, there's a range of factors that have influenced that turnout. But I know that our people worked hard, and I really want to acknowledge our volunteers, our candidates, our people that were working on the ground. And I also want to acknowledge our Pacific community because, oh my gosh, when we took Chippy to South Auckland, in particular on the last day of the election campaign, it was nothing but love.
Kia ora, Carmel. Thanks so much for joining us. So your own seat in Kelston was how did you feel like that campaign went? You obviously won, but it wasn't probably as large a margin as you have had in the past. How did that go for you?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to look at the actual results when the special votes come through, because apparently with our scrutineers that were out and about, there were a large number of special votes, and that was holding up some of the voting to a certain extent. And so it'll be interesting to see that. And I think the comparison has to be really probably the 2017 election in terms of the turnout, because 2020 was phenomenal. There was the whole Jacinda factor. There was off the back of COVID and everything the government had done to protect New Zealand from the pandemic. And so it'll be, the 2017 result, I think that will be interesting to compare it to, but not underestimating the fact that I think there may have been a lower voter turnout.
A lot of people like David Latali were really concerned about the issues at the polling booths, where you had polling booths having to turn people away at one stage because people the app was down, or there was issues with technology. Is that something that needs to be looked at, and do you think that played a factor in some of the party vote coming out of places like South Auckland?
Certainly was concerned about that in West Auckland. We had queues of people that were lining up for 45 minutes to an hour. And in some of the booths in Kelston, they didn't have enough tables, like at St. Leonard's School. Apparently only 3 voting tables, 1 for specials, and there were so many specials that were coming through that it meant there was a backup. And there, we will be asking questions about the capability and capacity of the Electoral Commission to provide for voting, because definitely there were some issues that arose.
Where did it go wrong, Carmel? If you look back over the campaign and that, so where do you feel Labour sort of lost or dropped the ball?
I don't think it's lost or dropped the ball. I think that we've had more challenges in the last 3 years than many could have anticipated. And some of the challenges that we faced are certainly global. And so cost of living, of course that affects our people. And we know it intimately when we're Pacific MPs, because these aren't just statistics. These are our families and our communities. Certainly the anxieties and uncertainty that came about post-COVID, we could see that particularly for us that are Auckland MPs and for Aucklanders. And so there are a range of things that have been going on. And I think, of course, as a government, we need to reflect, as a political party, we need to reflect, but I think we do need to also acknowledge that we've been through unprecedented times. And certainly that played a big part in what we've seen.
Have you spoken with Chris? And what was that conversation?
Yeah, I did speak with Chris, and and tribute to Chris. He's his, of course, disappointment, and he acknowledged and the fact that we had lost on the night, and also his comments to me were around myself and caucus. And so disappointment for New Zealand, disappointment for the fact that he couldn't carry us over the line, but also disappointment for his own colleagues. He was really gracious and really complimentary with regards to my own contribution and other members of the caucus's contribution. And that was his consideration at that point. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that.
Any talk of resignation at this stage, or he's going to be staying on as leader?
Certainly, as you would have seen, no talk of that last night. We need time, a little bit of time to regroup and reset. And so, that was not something that he discussed on the night.
So, Carmel, obviously a number of Pacific MPs from Labour, or a handful, are going to be bowing out. Have you had a chance to speak to Anahila or Nai about how they're feeling right now? And what would you want to say about them? They've obviously been popular Pacific MPs.
I've rung Anahila, Nai, Dan, Rose Warren, also Teresa Ngobi. This is the loss for our Pacific community. We've had the best representation for Pacific peoples in our government, and these are amazing people who have strived to serve our Pacific communities. And I've had conversations with them on the phone today, just checking in with them, because we're not just colleagues. We care about each other. We're like family. We know each other's partners. We care for each other's children. And that's the nature of us in the Labour Party, and that's the nature of us as Pacific people. And so certainly had those conversations. And it is disappointing that we lose that representation for Pacific people. Their decisions moving forward will be their decisions, but they know that they are cared for and loved by us. And I think that they would acknowledge too that that goes two ways. But they're okay. They know what politics is about too, but it's not always easy.
The transition back to opposition, Carmel, how does that work? And what does that look like now for the party, for Labour?
Well, interesting, because when I was in opposition before, I'd never been in government. Now I've been in government, and I'm going into opposition. I think I know how government works a little bit better, so I'm a little bit... I didn't want to be in opposition, but I think I can do opposition well now. And I have to say the same for my Pacific colleagues. So we will be working hard to hold the government to account. our number one consideration is not about us just winning as a political party. It's what's at stake for our Pacific community, and so much is at stake. And so we will be highlighting, holding that government to account and making sure our communities know what is happening. And I think that we have the capability to do that well.
Carmel, in hindsight, with the early resignation of Jacinda and the likes of Aupito and Poto, you think the writing was on the wall?
No, not necessarily, not at all. It is, political cycles and also the challenges that we've faced have, I think, brought us to this point. I acknowledge Aupito and Poto, and we're going to miss them as well. But it's important that we've got Pacific people to carry on. We still have 5 Pacific members of Parliament in the Labour Party. National are still going to have to wait to see if they have even one. There is, of course, the Te Aratu seat, but it's a very small margin, and we know what happens with special votes. Agnes herself said this morning that with the current numbers, she's not in. The Labour Party has always valued our Pacific voice, and we have always been represented back to the early 90s when Taitoa Philip Field first got in. And we will continue to have that representation. That will never be at risk for our political party. So we have to see what happens with National.
And, how does it feel to have your old university mate, Efeso? He's now going to be not alongside you in the party, but he'll be just around the corner, I guess. What's that going to be like?
Oh, no, good. We are on the same side, really, with regards to politics. And I've known Efeso for nearly 30 years, having studied with him, worked with him. Jenny Salesa studied with him as well. This is the thing. We know each other, and we know our communities. We are connected. This is how it goes. We're not new to each other, and so we will work together well, I'm sure. He used to be a member of the Labour Party and changed his mind and went with the Greens, and we don't hold that against him. We're going to be working with him because we're in the same block and we believe in the same things.
Carmel, just obviously there's a number of policies that National have slated as wanting to get rid of, or part of their first 100 days. What are some of the things Pacific people should be maybe looking out for that may be on the chopping block with National, and what will you be doing in opposition to kind of hold them to account on some of these areas?
Look, we'll do everything that we can, but if they have the numbers, it's going to be very difficult. Fair pay agreements are the number one thing that concerns me. Those are our lowest paid workers in sectors that are vulnerable. We put the fair pay agreement legislation in place so that we could negotiate minimum standards and expectations around what they should be paid and how they should be treated. And National has said that that will be gone. They will not build public housing to the same at the same pace or with the same vigor that we have. We built 13,000 during our 6 years, and we built more state houses, I believe, than anyone else had done since the 1950s. Things like bringing the foreign buyers back into the market, they're going to drive up the housing prices. That should be of concern to our Pacific people. And for those of our people that are really vulnerable and on benefits, and of course I have been the Minister for Social Development, I'm really concerned about the fact that they're going to change it so that they don't index benefit to wages, but they index it to CPI, which is lower, and save themselves $2 billion so that they can pay for the tax cuts that they have planned. It's actually, the tax cuts are unaffordable. The economists have come out and said that it will drive up interest rates, that it will drive up inflation, and at the same time, they're going to have to cut public services. And so I'm worried about a whole lot of things for our Pacific community, and we're going to be making sure that we hold them to account for all of this whilst they're in government, but they have been elected into government. And so, unfortunately, they are going to move ahead with some of these things.
Oh yeah, well just one last question. Obviously, by the numbers at the moment, National will be able to form a government with ACT, but if special votes come into play, New Zealand First is going to be an important factor in that. What as someone who was part of the cabinet, who worked alongside Winston, what would your advice be to Chris and David if they're to go into government with Winston Peters?
My advice would be good luck, because I cannot imagine how David Seymour, Winston Peters, and Chris Luxon are going to work together. And I do not have any faith that Chris Luxon is going to be able to rein in both Winston Peters and David Seymour.
Now, finally, to our Pacific communities who have been strong supporters over generations of the Labour Party, what's your message?
My message is thank you so much for your support of the Labour Party. We didn't see that diminish during this election campaign, and I'm so grateful for the support that they've continued to show us. I was really, I guess, taken aback when I was in Wellington recently, and some of our Samoan elders said to me that when I became Deputy Prime Minister, they all became Deputy Prime Minister. It was the realisation of that dream that our elders had, that we would be at these decision-making tables, and we should be, and it's on their shoulders that we stand. And so I just say thank you and keep backing us, because we want to be the shoulders that the next generation stands on.
Whaftaitele lava lau sunga, Carmel Sepuloni, Kelson MP, currently Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you so much for your time and all the best. Thank you, Carmel.
Thank you. Whaftai lava.
Very shortly we're going to be joined in studio by Carmel's ex-university colleague, Whanana Vessel Collins from the Greens. But before that, Kalo, let's go back for our next news bulletin. Malo pito.
Whakalofalai atu, malo mo mea mai. National is set to form the next government after winning 50 seats according to official projections. Labour suffered a severe defeat, winning just 34 seats compared to 65 in its massive landslide in 2020. The Greens had their finest ever election result, winning 14 seats, including 3 electorate seats. Its numbers might be bolstered even further by special votes, particularly from overseas. Its co-leader, Marama Davidson, her voice hoarse, told the Green Party faithful that it was a historic result.
Let me be clear, e te iwi e te Pāti Kākariki. Your work has delivered a Green Party campaign that has once again defied history.
Among the amazing results for the Greens were a victory in Auckland Central for Chloe Sulbrick, Tamitha Paul to Wellington Central ahead of Labour's Ibrahim Omar, and Julie Ann Centre won Rongotai, again ahead of Labour. Appearing alongside co-leader James Shaw, a passionate, exuberant Marama Davidson thanked Green supporters.
The greatest honour of my life to lead the Green Party with James Shaw and to work with you and our communities for an Aotearoa that protects our mokopuna and our planet. And I am so proud and grateful to every single one of you here and around Aotearoa, the strength that you have given us. We have carried your spirit, your energy, your passion with us every step of the way. Thank you all for your inspiring mahi.
The results mean that National is likely to form a government with ACT, who are on 11 seats. ACT leader David Seymour promised supporters a future of real change.
For all of those people who wonder, what will the future hold? Well, I can tell you it is a future of change, a future of real change, and a future where once again New Zealand is the best little country that can, because we believe that each person has a right to make that difference in their own lives, that we are not subject to some government that decides for us, and those are the values that have brought people to these shores for generations and made New Zealand the country that it is.
But Christopher Luxon may have to call on New Zealand First, who have 8 seats.
Malo o pito Warm welcome back to our post-election special here on 531 PI. Hey, Kalo, I was just going to comment on your pearl necklace. That's nice.
Oh, thank you. It's actually from the Solomon Islands.
Oh, sorry about you.
I can't afford it, but it was a gift from my aunt.
Oh, well. I was
So
gonna
thank
ask-
you, Auntie Lita.
Thank you, Auntie Lita, for mortgaging the house to buy your niece a beautiful set of pearls. And thank you, Lofa. Always good to get a caffeine caffeine shot to help with the energy levels here. Guys, any thoughts with regards to our Talanoa with Carmel?
Yeah, I guess it's good to see that she's I got the sense that her energy is still there. She's not bowed by the result, and I think we as a Pacific community need our politicians to not get knocked down but get back up, and regardless of who you support, it's great to have Pacific voices in Parliament, and as she says, it does look like, and on current numbers, there's going to be 5 Labour MPs and 2 Green Party Pacific MPs. So, it's good that she's still in for the fight, I guess. And
I like what you said there, Justin, because one of the things I absolutely love about Carmel is that she's so feisty. She has a fighting spirit, and I think she absolutely thrives even more when she's on the opposition. And I love that she's doing that for our Pacific people. So loved hearing that on her Talanoa today.
Former Minister of Social Development, I had the opportunity to host a function for MSD Pacific staff whānau, which was held to the Alexandra Racecourse, and one of the questions that was going through my mind, because they've got another one coming up in November, what does that now look like for MSD in terms of the Pacific strategy or vision that they had for the Pacific staff, but not only that, but also in terms of the policies, how that impacts benefits, etc.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a very political. It's like a football, the MSD portfolio, and we saw under Paula Bennett, it was used. It was a very different way that it was managed, and that people were pushed off benefits. But there'll also be lots of critics who say that Carmel has not been the kindest, or hasn't always been the gentlest of ministers in that position. But I mean, I think the last thing I would just say on her is that she was one of the strongest performers for Labour during this campaign, particularly when Chris Hipkins had COVID, and as we saw in our own, when she came on our radio station, or during the Pacific debate that was held. And I think, if Labour wants to think about a new leader, and if that conversation comes up, Carmel has to be at the top of the list for
She
me.
would be perfect, yes.
To coin a phrase, a game of two halves. Going back to our quarter-final win this morning. Go the APs! She mentioned the special votes. It's all hinging on these special votes, which traditionally have gone towards the left in that. And again, we're looking at a number of around, 500,000. What are we looking at in terms of seats there, Justin? There could be, 1 to 3 seats going either way?
Definitely, I'd expect there to be one seat to come out of it. Out of 500,000 votes, you might see one change, but possibly 2. And there's also this big question mark around what happens with Port Waikato, which is where
I know.
Kalo is from.
So
you
I
didn't get to vote for an MP.
No,
which
I
is
didn't.
unusual.
So for my family, we make election day a family routine. That's when we vote. So my husband and I, we wake up, get the kids together, we talk about why we vote, we talk about the values about our family, and then we go and vote. But walked in and they said, remember, it's just a party vote. You got to wait till November 25th. And I believe there's a few people here. So it's who live in in Port Waikato, because it's Pōkeno. Chris Waiuku, of course, for myself. There's Karaka for Don, and also Pukekohe. And there's a few of our staff are here in Pukekohe.
So the by-election result, 25th of November?
Yeah.
Yes, 25th of November.
Yeah.
That's when we vote for our electorate.
It's going to be very interesting, and then, of course, how that will impact, in terms of the seats in there. Okay, well, we're going to take a quick break and play some ads, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by a new MP for the Greens in the list there, Whanana Efeso Collins. Woohoo!
531 PI aims to broadcast a high-quality program. If you believe standards have been breached and want to lodge a formal complaint, contact Pacific Media Network on 0800 763 342, complaints@pmn.co.nz, or by writing to PO Box 97601, Manukau, Auckland. Complaints must be lodged within 20 working days of the broadcast date. For information about New Zealand's broadcast code, check out the Broadcasting Standards Authority website, bsa.govt.nz.
There's a screening here tonight.
Free bowel cancer screening is available to people aged 60 to 74 years. You'll get a test kit in the mail every 2 years. It's an easy test you do at home.
Stick from the test, put it in the poo. Just follow the pictures, it's easy to do.
The test can detect bowel cancer early before you have any symptoms. So when you get it, just do it. It could save your life. For more information, go to timetobowelscreen.nz or talk to your doctor.
The Pacific Post-Election Special on 531 PI.
Very warm welcome back to the post-election special here on 531 PI. And joining us in studio now, Whanana Fessel Collins, a Green Party, looking very celebratory in his green aloha. Congratulations. Yay. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Also really appreciate it. Congratulations. Now, you didn't win, but you get in on the party list. Reaction, firstly?
Yeah, really excited, really grateful. And yeah, didn't win Pami Otahu. We'll build that up to the next election. But I think what's really important is that we've got a bigger caucus going in this time. We had 9 members in the last caucus, and we go in with a vote that's been pretty positive. The polls let us down a bit, or maybe the votes let us down because maybe too many of us believe the polls. And I think that's another question that needs to be asked too, is about how much of our focus was on the polls. But we're really pleased as a caucus to be heading in, hopefully with 14, potentially 15 MPs, depending on how the specials go.
Successful and strong campaign. It's great to see the likes of your buddy there, Chloe, and Marama and James there. Reminded me of what is it, Braveheart?
We wanted our messages to be very clear, very concise, and make sure that everyone hears them. So there was absolutely no doubt about us yelling into your ears.
Yeah.
And not many people would know this, but you've also got Irish heritage.
Yeah.
So, this morning's result, how was that?
Well, I would win either way. But like the seat versus the party vote. We've won. Either way, we walk away with a win. So I actually thought the Irish would win. My head was with the Irish. My heart was with the All Blacks. So my heart has won today, and the head might have to test my polling about how my rugby analysis has been. Yeah, thanks.
You're preparing to go into Parliament. That's a real big deal. So, what's the mindset for you, or the type of thinking around preparation and looking ahead to your first tenure, your first go in Parliament? Whanana?
Yeah, learn. Whatever I can do. Like this is, I was on council for nearly 10 years, and there's similarities, I guess, but this is a whole new ball game for me, and so I'm really keen to get in to understand what the system's like. Unfortunately, we're going in opposition, but that's probably a good place to learn as well. So I'm really looking forward to the experience. We've got some experienced MPs that we can learn off. And I spoke with Carmela, she was on your show just a little while ago, and they're really open to reaching out to. And I think as a Pacific kind of caucus or Pacific set of parliamentarians, it's important that we still work with one another. I think there's still a lot of camaraderie amongst us. We're going to play a slightly different game when it comes to policies and politics, but it's important that people feel supported. So I'm just going to learn, and we have to adjust as a family as well. We were talking all night about what life might be like commuting to Wellington, because I've never been a fan of Wellington. I'm a real fan of Auckland, and probably a bit of a fan of Christchurch, and so now I'm going to go. Look, you go to Wellington for what, Te Papa, and for my family in Lower Hutt when it's whalawe, but outside of that, Wellington isn't a city that I think is the most appealing.
Whanana, not many of our congratulations, by the way, malo me mai. Not many people I know. 13 years ago, when we were in Ponsonby, you used to work as an announcer on 531 PI, and I remember chatting with you, and you did mention your dream, to reach politics. How does it feel now, 13 years later, to finally see that, to fruition?
Yeah, and it is. It's like a childhood dream come true, and those of us who kind of watch the mayoral journey as well last year. I kind of thought, well, we've done everything we could, and that was a great journey. We learned a whole lot about ourselves, about our stamina, and so today being elected to Parliament, on the provisional results, is really exciting for our family. And we've always been about advocacy, always been about wanting to be a strong voice for our people, and that's what I think's been needed. And I'm glad that I'm with a party that have fully embraced me, who've accepted me, and I'm a little bit challenging sometimes. I'm a bit different, but odd, but weird, but that's cool, because that's what we're made up of in the Greens, is people who are different but really want to take strong advocacy positions. So we're really excited as a family.
Yeah, because talking about how you were once in the employ of 531 PI, when you say the word challenging, I understand that was the reason you were let go, being a bit outspoken, but how that has actually helped you now, and being a future politician. You don't have to go into detail around that.
Well, I was going to say, remember, that was politically motivated.
Yes, I know.
It was about money.
Talk about it.
Yes,
I will talk about it. It was about money that the national government at the time had given to a Pacific organisation with like $5 million, and they gave them this 4-page application. And I thought, you have to, to get money out of council, to get $20 out of council, you got a 15-page application, and here was a group getting $5 million. And I think perhaps that's what's going to sum up our approach to Parliament this term, is we're here to keep people to account. Yeah, we want to propose new ideas, we want to propose an advocacy and a way forward for our country, but we've also got to hold people to account. So I think that's all part and parcel, and we need outspoken people. Life would be boring without outspoken people.
With the success last night, that was great, and seeing the rigour with which Chloe, Marama and James addressed the public and Green supporters. But is it a shallow victory in that you're going to be in opposition? There won't be anyone in government as per se, versus last term.
We see this as a really excited victory for us. Exciting in the sense that what we really want to do is take ideas forward, strong advocacy. Yeah, we'll be in opposition, but this is about how we are the voice of people and advocate for people. So not a shallow victory at all. And this is a bigger caucus. We've got more people. You will hear us, but believe you me, you will not hear the end of us. We're going to be at it constantly.
Now, this is obviously a live show. We've got a number of different things happening here. So we've actually got a call in from Vision New Zealand candidate Carl Mokoraka.
Hey,
now, he obviously heckled a lot of other, but he's not here to heckle you. But he was someone you ran against, and so we're just going to pull him onto Zoom if he's there. He's actually just dropped off, so that's all good. Oh well, hopefully he'll come back. You guys ran against each other, obviously in the Pamua Otahu seat. I mean, what's your reflection on last year? You went through this quite brutal campaign. I had the rare fortune of trying to help you out with that, and it's a little conflict of interest today, but for me. But so looking, it was almost like a 9-month campaign compared to this one, where it was much shorter, probably a bit more short and sharp. But reflecting on that, that potential role, and now this new one, which is quite different. What's sort of your thoughts?
Yeah, this campaign was a little bit different because the scale of it wasn't as large. And Auckland is a huge city. We were chasing 1.2 million votes. And I think we did really well in the end, but just a really different context as far as the Auckland campaign was concerned. This one much more local amongst people that I know. I guess the challenging thing for me was coming out of Labour and into the Greens and having to talk about why I'd made the move. What was it? Because so many of our voters are entrenched in voting Labour, and that made it really easy. So when I turn up to churches or people's doorsteps, their first question was, well, why did you leave? And so it wasn't hard to start a conversation. And I'm glad, with the voter turnout that we've had, we're really impressed. We've tripled the vote actually from 2017, because 2020 was a slightly odd case. But we're really glad, and I want people to know that it's important that it doesn't matter what the vehicle is, as long as the value base is where you're starting at, and it's going to propose ideas for all of our people. And we're going to need that in Parliament.
So did you come from church, or you're going to church after
Today?
this?
Yeah, just came from Mass. Mum said I had to be at church, and so did Bakele. And I think it's more about making sure I got my offering in. But because my mum marks how much did you put in that envelope? It's good we've got one.
You haven't mortgaged the house again recently, please.
No.
Come on.
Well, barely struggling with the mortgage actually. But yeah, so and that's good too, because that, you know, there was huge support. You know, our church was pretty split. You know, people were a little bit uncomfortable because, you know, there's a whole lot of people who are really supportive of Jenny, and congratulations again, Jenny. But there were people there too who are saying, oh, we're starting to make the move towards the Greens.
Good. We're now going to be joined by Kalo Mokaraka. Vision, no, gone off again, technical. Okay, what were you saying again, please?
Well, I was just going to say, Carl, if you're listening at the moment,
what was it?
I really enjoyed the kind of campaign that Carl even ran, because you need a little bit of disruption. I know Carl, because we've all grown up in Otara for many years. He's a good guy, and I've really enjoyed the way he's been passionate about the community, and we need that too. Hey, we need people to keep us really passionate, keep us, you know, our eyes in the right place and eyes on the prize. So yeah, he was lots of fun. I'm good on him for getting the attention he got.
And what have you learnt from your career in council politics and running for mayor that you'll be able to take into Parliament and bring, because a lot of people who go into Parliament often don't come from that political background. They've maybe worked as a real estate agent or maybe a guns rights activist or something like in the ACT Party. But for you, you know, you've actually got quite a long political career in some ways. What learnings are you going to take down with you?
Yeah, that change comes slowly, and a whole lot slower than I wish it would come at. And so people have to understand.
I think we've got Carl. Carl is
made
it. Is Carl there? Should we go
Carl
to
back?
Marlo?
Carl, you should check your connections, bro. Your Zoom keeps dropping out.
Malo soi for Kalo Mokaraka, candidate for Vision New Zealand, Pamua Otahu, and it's hello, Carl. Malo soi for.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Awesome, Carl. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us. Also, really appreciate it. Reaction a bit disappointed with regards to the result for you in Pamua Otahu.
You know what? It's my first time riding the horse. I'll take something out of Winston. It's my first rodeo. So I've learned quite a lot actually. And first and foremost, I want to say congratulations to Efeso, my fellow Otara brother, and also to Jenny Salisa and her family. It's been a fierce few months, but at the end of the day, we are all people and we love each other, and but we're fierce in politics and tender on people in our family. So congratulations to both Efeso and Jenny Salisa and her family.
Carl, what are some of your learnings you've taken away from your first campaign and first tilt at politics?
I've learned I knew things were bad in our communities, especially in Pamua Otahu, and but I didn't know they were that bad. So I think they're a lot worse given the climate that we've got at the moment, just with our people, our Pacifica and our Māori people. I've door knocked on many houses, or door knocked at many houses, and actually it's been an eye opener just to see real families and seeing the struggles and the challenges that they face. And so I think that's been a fantastic learning for me. And it drives me on actually, and the passion for our Pacifica community to empower and to do better. And probably just like Efeso, we have the same heart for our people, same passion, same drive. So and I've enjoyed, actually, me and Efeso have been catching up with each other. We laugh because Otara boys know each other's sense of humor, and but we both love the Lord too. So there's a real connection there between myself and Efeso.
Your reaction to last night's results, because many people not be happy with looking at a national ACT coalition government. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's probably why it's more important for us to have people that are going to fight for our local communities. We know at the grassroots level, with our families and myself included, and Efeso, and in somewhat Jenny, we're people on the ground, and we just want the best for our communities. And I am concerned, but I think it's also it's a time for us to fight for our communities, fight for the best outcomes, fight for the best housing, and at the politics aside, we're really there as a voice for the people, and we're there to serve the people, and we want the best for our generations coming through. So, yeah, we are a bit concerned, but I'm also I know with God all things are possible, and we're gonna fight for all our areas, and mainly for our Pacifica families and our Māori families, and those who are doing it really tough at the moment. So I'm sure Feso and Jenny will be representing us at the Beehive, and I'll be on the ground in our communities, and I'll fight for our communities all the way. So yeah, I think that's the determination that it's taught me in this campaign. I didn't get started until 11 weeks in, so yeah, it's been a learning experience, but a very good one.
One of your tactics was to, I guess, people were calling you the man over the fence, or you were known for, I guess, heckling might be one of the words people were using. Was that a plan, or was that just something, a spur of the moment thing? And what were some of the behind the scenes? Did you have any follow up with any of the candidates from that, or did you? Yeah, just tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, I suppose like for the first one, when I suppose the former or the outgoing Prime Minister Chris Hipkins came to Otara, because I've been doing a lot of work on the ground, I heard that he was coming to the town centre. Initially, I just was going to ask him some questions when he was going to be on stage, and just ask him about, things haven't improved for our communities. But as soon as we got to the markets, obviously our people are very rowdy and loud, and it was, so his supporters were loud and I was loud, and it sort of eventuated into that, and then the Prime Minister turned up. So that one was unplanned. The Christopher Luxon one, I actually attended the National Party meeting out in Pakuranga. I think there was about 250 people there, and I had the same thing to ask him a question, and that was unplanned as well. And I suppose the Samoan part of me is the funny side of me, because Māoris can be very, I don't know which part of me was the disruptor in this whole thing, but it was unplanned. I didn't have any sort of structure to how I was going to do it. I just saw an opportunity, and I could see through the fence. The media scrum, it was blocked off to the public, but I saw the fence, and you take your opportunity, just like Zacchaeus in the Bible, who jumped up on a tree to get his attention. So that's basically what I done. I took my opportunity to bring Otara into the limelight, I would say. So yeah.
Carl, you took an opportunity like Zacchaeus, but instead of a tree, you borrowed somebody's wheelchair. I want to ask, did you actually ask for permission? And during the time that you were standing on this person's wheelchair, where was the person? Were they just sitting on the grass next to their wheelchair? And how did they react to you borrowing their wheelchair, please?
Well, my brother, who I won't name him, but he drove me there, and he said to me, I think you've lost your opportunity, let's go. And I said, we'll get back to the fence. And I was trying to look around for something to elevate myself. And I said to him, your wheelchair's in the back of the fence. And it eventuated from there. So I said, I'm going to borrow your wheelchair. And he's like, I'm going to stay in the car. And I go, no, you stay in the car, and then I'll use your wheelchair. So that's how I wheeled myself over. And I had some knee surgery, so it was somewhat a bit challenging to get up on that wheelchair. So that's why I was stuck there on that fence when that little Asian lady was rubbing my I don't know what she was rubbing, but yeah, but she was rubbing my elbow, I think it was,
yes,
and trying to get me down.
Carl, let's keep it PG rated, praise God rated, okay? But, Carl, where to from here for you? Are you going to continue in politics, or is this a one-off for you?
Yeah, no, from here, I only got into this in the last 12 weeks. So I thought, for 12 weeks, I thought, I got some votes. It might have been my aunties, my uncles, whoever, but I'm really thankful that I got some support. And probably just like Richie McCaw, I saw him in the All Blacks game this morning. And I remember 2009, where they drastically got beaten in the quarterfinals by the French. Well, I think that is the similar opportunity that I've got right now. And I think you only learn from your losses, and you only learn from the challenging times. It's not really a challenge for me, but it's I saw it in the same likeness. So from here, probably like Richie McCaw, where he went on to be one of our greatest All Black captains and the greatest teams where they won back-to-back wins. I'm believing this is just the beginning for me, because our people really do need strong voices and a strong representation of what's really happening on the ground. So it's never been about I want a job or I want a career. It's actually been about the people that you represent, and so it's only the start for me, I believe. So yeah.
Well, a very big thank you, whakataiteri lava ngā mihi, Kalo Mokaraka, a Vision New Zealand candidate for Panmure Otahu. You mentioned Richard McCaw 2 or 3 times, and when you say the word likeness, just looking at your shoulders on the screen there, very, very similar indeed. Thank you so much also to you and Teresa and the family and the rest of the team. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, whāsui fua. It's, talking about... Oh, Justin, you're leaving.
I'm going to swap without...
Thank you so much, Justin Latif, political reporter, PMN News political reporter. It's interesting, when he mentioned, and yourself, you mentioned whanana, about how you can still have relationships across political divides, like... You two getting together and is sons of the promised land and Otara in there. How do you keep it the sort of politics is politics, but when it comes to the personal side, then it's like, hey, we can still be friends, even though ideologically we may be on different sides of the fence.
It takes real maturity to be able to keep to not personalize everything, and that's where I think there's a difference. Is we come from, we're from communities where you kind of have family issues, and you've got, in every family there's the golden child like myself, and then there's the child who never turns up, the child who never gives the whakalawe, and they always just come and eat all the food. That's just the way we're raised, but you lavish your love on them irrespective of what they're like in the unit. And I think that's what we do really well, is we come together, we're able to not personalize, and we can talk to the subjects. It's a bit like sport. People run on the field, or they run on the court, and then you have a glass of water afterwards, or another kind of a drink.
I wanted to ask, in terms of your experience, local government, coming off, it's all good, we're all family. So coming in, in terms of the experience that you've had at local government, how has that prepared you for now going into opposition or into Parliament as a new MP?
One of the things that I've really enjoyed about local government is you have to be collaborative. Is the party names are sidelined when you get into local government. No one sits there and says, I'm a Labour person, I'm a Greens person. We sit there and we think we've got to achieve this. There's only a few of us, so we've got to agree. And that's probably different to the way Parliament works, because this is a numbers game, and the Nats and ACT probably have the numbers at the moment. So what you've got to do is make sure that you're able to work in the background to win people over to your ideas. And there's going to be hard work that goes on so that we can get people to agree with some of the bills that we might be proposing. When it comes to issues around, say, climate change, those are issues that are big for the Green Party, and we might want to push them just a little bit further, just to go a little bit harder. And that's the lobbying advocacy that we do in the background. There'll always be kind of a public manifestation of how the arguments work, but in the background we should be lobbying hard so that we could just get them a step closer towards us, so that people feel like, my voice is really being heard now.
I've asked you this question before, but in terms of the pressure that you put on yourself in terms of your public profile, sadly there have been a number of incidents with you in terms of death threats, bomb threats, and that. But now you're going into Parliament where you will be exposed to a larger audience, and that. How do you manage that side on a personal note, and why? Why are you willing to still continually put yourself out there, whaanana, in spite of the many challenges, which other people didn't know? No way, I don't want a bar of it.
Yeah, it's an issue that we discuss a lot. And you have asked me this before. I think firstly, as a family, we believe what we're doing is a call on our lives. This is the will of the Lord for us. And so we want to honour and be obedient to that call. But we've got each other. Hey, I've got a supportive wife. The kids are really supportive. I've got friends who, throughout the campaign, they're texting us, they're praying for us, they're standing with us. I had the other day, one of my friends, he's a cop, turned up and dropped off donuts. And I said, bro, I don't know that my body needs donuts right now. But little things like that where people will come and stand with us. And I think those are the kinds of things where people support us. But when this is beyond us, and I'm thinking of my daughters and the kind of legacy and heritage we leave for them, we're done. Like, no one wants to invest in me anymore. I'm 1,000 years old. So my job is to facilitate the conditions so that my daughters flourish, so that our children flourish. Because the facts remain, I've got brown daughters, and if you are brown and female, the research is really clear. You earn the least in comparison to a white male. And our job is to really navigate our kids through those challenges, because there is systemic racism in our society, and our girls are not going to do it unless we're there to walk with them, navigate it, and change the system.
Look, I want to bring you in, PMN News political reporter.
I have a question for you, if you saw. There will be a lot. Well, firstly, thank you for joining us and congratulations. But there will be, just going off, sharing about your children, your daughters who are young, there will be a lot of young people out there, young Pacific people out there who are feeling disempowered right now after the results, who are feeling anxious about the future. What do you have to say to them in regards to your fight on behalf of that demographic?
That this fight is for them, and that they've got to take over me soon. Hey, we can do everything that we can, but if our young people are prepared to march down the streets for climate change, then my encouragement to them is another aspect of that is ticking 2 boxes come election. And what we know is that in poorer, browner communities, our people don't vote. Our people feel disengaged and disenfranchised, which is the point you're making. And so our job is to say, what's the vision we have? What is it that we're all trying to achieve? And how do we get there together? And we have to play the game in front of us. Hey, if we're all playing a game of netball, then there's no point turning up with a rugby ball and saying, no, I'd rather play rugby, because the game is netball. And this is how democracy works in this country. And whether you like it or not, you gotta participate, because if we don't participate, we get the kinds of results we've had last night, which is we're seeing thousands of our people not vote. And yes, some people are saying, oh yeah, that's a choice too. Yeah, it's a choice in my view based on feeling disenfranchised, feeling completely hopeless. When you've got nowhere to stay, you're going to move from house to house, you'll be transient, and that makes people feel like they are not part of a society. When you feel like you belong, you participate. And I know that's a tough call for some, but we got to start somewhere, because we can change the results of any election if we all voted.
Yeah, looking at national and ACT's policies, they don't seem to have any specific targeted towards our Pacific communities or our young communities. What are some of the policies that Greens have planned for young people? So
we've got a tangata moana policy, a Pacific policy, probably wasn't talked about enough during the campaign, but that's about how do we ensure that our languages are retained, how are we teaching, what are the kinds of pedagogies we're using in the workplace, how are we going to address the income gap, which is what I just talked about our girls and white males being a big difference. That's like a 27% difference. So all of those things are in our tangata moana policy. policy and an amnesty. And that's the stuff we've been pushing the Labour Party on, who are normally our friends, but on this they've been really slow to show friendship. And then they came out and they announced an amnesty policy after 10 years of being, it's too late.
Yeah.
It is too late for too many people. And what I'm saying is we've got to be really ambitious. So those are some of the things. And of course, housing is really important. And, I've heard that, our friends from the Labour Party saying, look, we've built 13,000 houses. They came into power saying we'd build 100,000. Now, come on, it is unacceptable that they have not built with ambition. And what we're saying as the Green Party is we need ambition. Our proposals was to build 7,000 houses, clear the waiting list within 5 years, and everyone's in a house that's safe and dry and warm. And that's what we're going to need. But we have to, it's not until we feel it. And that's why people don't vote. They just think, how can you help me? They feel so disempowered by a system that I think is designed to shut us out.
Moving on to climate. Oh, are we all good for time?
Yeah, just go until we hear from David, and then we're going to move on to that one. It's all good.
We know and we understand that the Pacific is on the front lines of climate change. What is your party going to do to uphold, I guess, the government's responsibility, New Zealand's responsibility, in ensuring we take care of our Pacific neighbours?
Yeah. Well, our ETS goals were implemented by our green ministers of climate change. James Shaw held that role. We're not going to hold that role this time around, because we're not going to be part of the government. But what we will do is keep them honest, is make sure that we're pushing people to reach those targets. The National Party's targets, in our view, aren't as strong as they should be. We want people, just take New Zealand, our living conditions at the moment. If we start to get people walking and cycling out of their cars, and most often our Pacific people are driving big cars, that means you've got to pay a lot of petrol to fill them. All of that is burning up carbon emissions and releasing it into the air. Also encouraging people to eat less beef. I'm a real fish chicken person. I eat lamb now. But those are the kinds of things. Yes, see, I knew it. And more salads. But the point is that there's a number of things we can all do. And let's be honest, in my view, the quarter-acre house is gone. Unless you've got like a $1.5 million sitting in your back pocket, we've got to start looking at apartment living. But I think we're so focused, we're fixated on, we grew up on a quarter-acre land. It's just way expensive. And we live in an apartment. And we're trying to show everyone we don't need the car because we're close to the bus. We've gone from 2 cars to 1 car. We catch the bus most of the time. All of that means that we're burning less carbon. We're creating less carbon to go into the atmosphere. Everyone's doing their bit. But we've also got to take a global approach, which is what's the West doing? Because the Pacific is going to suffer the most, and the Pacific is responsible for 0.007% of carbon emissions. That's nothing in comparison to what the West countries are doing. So all the things, around Paris Agreement, all the agreements that they're doing, we've got to be serious about what the West can do.
What does last night's result mean for the aspirations of Pacifica and Aotearoa?
I think we're in a real time of concern. You've heard some of the comments loosely, perhaps, that David Seymour has made. In my view, it'll be David Seymour running the government, not Chris Luxon. I think they are going to. It'll be the tail wagging the dog.
Why?
Here. Because the Nats are so desperate to form coalition that they'll give them anything they want, and they need them desperately. Winston Peters in the mix might change things up again, but we know that when it comes to climate change, when it comes to building, under the last national government, they sold about 8,000 state houses, and then Labour built 13,000. So you've only had a net gain of 5,000 state houses, which is way too slow. And so, while one party is saying, look how many we've built, but you offered 100,000, so you're like 83,000 off your own record. So the Pacific people have to understand, look, if we want a government, we've got a government, we need a government that's fair. And if what we're pursuing is fairness and equity, then it's our job now to push the Nats and act on making sure that they pursue fairness. So they've got an idea of what fairness might look like. I don't completely agree, but that's all right. We're not in government, so our job is to hold them to account.
What is the solution to ongoing Pacifica apathy towards voting over generations, which if we had every Pacific person of voting age voting, how last night's result would have looked? what is the solution?
Well, we've been asking that question for years now, so I don't know that I've actually got any solutions. During the mayoral campaign, we pushed hard. We said, no, we're going to go out to the poorer communities, we're going to campaign as hard as we can because we know that's where our vote is. There was no change. I won South Auckland, I barely won West Auckland, and then I lost everywhere else. And what that tells us is our people are feeling disengaged. But we talk a little bit, when you study this stuff in political science, what it actually shows us is when communities who are from minority backgrounds and Indigenous backgrounds in colonised societies feel so disengaged that sometimes they just think, well, there's a Western system. They don't care about us anyway, so we'll just hop out. We choose to opt out. But when we are in the game, it's not until you're on the field that you realise you can manipulate how the things work. You can bring your skill. I got the shock of my life. I think the biggest time, the time I had the biggest head when I was in council was when someone said to me, "You're like the Kalo Spencer of local government."
Wow,
hey,
that's a big call. That's a big call.
I know, and I had toffee pops at the same time.
Yeah.
Those of us of that age who remember those commercials. But the point is, every so often you got to try something different, and I think our people are really good at doing that. But I think there's a myriad of things that causes us not to be able to feel like we can participate in the voting program.
Political science, interesting. Was that during the time that both you and Carmel were at university? Are you able to share with us, your close friends, who actually qualified with higher qualifications between you two, or in terms of your exam results? Fairly even?
No, I think everyone did better than me. I'm just a humble person from the streets from Preston Road and Otara who just wanted to make it.
Okay. We are Vessel Collins, son of the Promised Land. Okay. Don't you ever speak down to the stereotypes again, okay? Don't do that. We're going to another news bulletin with the lovely Kalo Toitu. Thank you, Malo Opito Kalo.
Whakalofalai atu, Malo Pita mo mea mai. National is set to form the next government after winning 50 seats according to official projections. He's likely to form a government with ACT, but may have to call upon a research in New Zealand first led by Winston Peters.
We've always known that in great democracies, then the people who are elected and all those officials must be held to account. Our purpose is to keep them honest and to raise the roof when others won't raise a finger. And I can promise you, that's what New Zealand's going to get out of tonight's election where New Zealand First is concerned.
Labour won just 34 seats compared to 65 in its massive landslide in 2020. There are also wins and losses among Pacific MPs. Winners for Labour were Carmel Sepuloni in Kelston, Barbara Edmonds in Mana, Jenny Salesa in Penmua o Tahuhu, and Tangi Ukitere in Palmerston North. Labour's Le Maunga Lydia Sosene will be Mangere new electorate MP after serving as a list MP. But Labour's Anai Nerulea Vasa lost in Takanini, as did Teresa Ngobi in Otaki. Another big casualty for Labour was the loss of Anahila Kanongata Suisuiki. Dan Rose-Vaughan will also not be returning to Parliament. Looking to the other parties, based on preliminary results, Nationals' Angie Nicholas looks to have pulled off a stunning victory in Te Atatu, while Whanoti Agnes Loheni will be hoping for special votes to swing in her favour so she can enter Parliament via the Nationals list. The Greens had their finest ever election result, winning 14 seats, including 3 electorate seats. One of its new MPs will be Whanana Efesa Collins.
Yeah!
He made it in as a Green List MP and joins Te Anau Tuiono, who has made it back into Parliament. Finally, former National Cabinet Minister Alfred Ngaro has failed to reignite his political career. His Christian values-based New Zealand Party only got 0.56% support on election night, or 12,599 votes.
Malo Opito Kalo, a very warm welcome. What's the time? 22 minutes past 1, post-election special here on 531 PI. Your thoughts, Whanana, on this political phoenix who time and time again rises from the ashes. 3 years ago, he was a forlorn figure, lonely on the dance floor at the Duke of Marlborough, but now potentially again coming back in based on the slimmest of margins. Who knows if the hand will be reached out towards Winston Peters. It's incredible.
I think Winston has retained a constituency that has always liked him. the last election, the whole Jacinda Mania thing probably drifted in a way that they were going to win, and that was the end of his party. But he always seems to come out. I'm not sure what it is, but I'd love for him to write a book, because it'll be really interesting to see what his insights are. One thing, I don't want to have a go at the guy, but one thing, I used to do a whole lot of political analysis, as you know, is I'm interested in the development of the party, because it still feels like it's Winston Peters' party. I laugh at political analysts when they're on TV. They were doing it last night, and they kept saying Winston first. Hey, and I think maybe that sums up the party. So that's what I'd like to see, is we've been talking about young people. I'll be interested in how Winston sees his role as developing talent to come through, because it has been a Winston first party, and that's not just his issue. That's an issue across the board of all political parties, is how do we invest and nurture the next generation, because that's probably part of the issue.
Like a succession plan.
Without succession, and we do it all the time. You look at companies, you look at some churches. Hey, we've got challenges with succession, and what we need to understand, perhaps in my world, is take the youth mentoring approach, which is to always understand that we are never the ceiling, and people should see us as the stepping stone for them. And that's how I think we should look at politics and just life in general. If I think everyone's just going to worship me forever, well, boring, because the minute I'm dead, the church is dead as well, and we look for the next idol. So we've got to get away from this heroic leadership, we call it in leadership studies, where it's one person and it becomes a team approach.
Interesting with regards to that analogy, like a church. Let's hope it's not like a Pasifika church where Shane Jones gets so offended he just goes and starts his own party, just literally down the road. Kalo, question?
Oh yes, I was going to ask if you saw, because one of the Winston Peters is such a colourful character. People love him. You either like him or you don't like him. And but I always feel when I watch Winston, he has the X factor. And in your studies, I wanted to ask, how would you, for young people who would like to get into politics, what can make them have the X factor? Do you either have it or you don't, or can you build it, or you can teach it?
Yeah, I think all of them. There are some people that come in, they're great communicators, and that's really good. And then there are some who've got great strategic thinking minds, and you put it all together, you get an amazing mix. And that's why I'm into teams, because one All Black is not going to beat the Irish team. You need people to play different positions with different skills, and you need people to appreciate the skills. And so young people have all of that. I look at millennials, because I'm a bit closer to them, and some of them, being 31, and born in 80 something, and 90. But when you look at them, if you look at in working situations, they're the ones who are saying, why do we always have to be at the office from 9 to 5? Why can't we do a bit of work from home? They are challenging old systems, and that's what we've got to do, is we've got to embrace the views of young people. That's why when they march up Queen Street around climate action, we should embrace that. Instead, you get mainstream media, and they're saying, oh, look at those kids, they're all wagging, that's why they're not in school, and the National Party jump in on that. And I just think this is them saying that our world is evolving, we want to evolve with it. And sometimes parties, like the one I left, parties are structured so much like that they struggle to include new voices. And that's why when I hear people say, oh, I've got lots of young people volunteering for me, yeah, that's all you want from them. But the minute they start challenging your ideas, suddenly, I don't want the young people around, thank you. And that's where we've got to get it right. We've got to be open to their views.
You can actually mention the name of your former party if you want.
The Labour Party.
Thank you, Whanana. How do you get Pacific politicians to work together better despite party allegiances?
Yeah, well, you've got to form some kind of understanding around what the key ideas are. And there are going to be some things where you agree on, but we've got to understand too that we're bound by party politics. And so certain people are going to say, no, I'd love to do that, but we can't. I'll give you an example. The Greens came out and said, we want to do a wealth tax. And then Hipkins said no to a wealth tax. And the number of Pacific MPs who struggled publicly in the meetings because they wanted a wealth tax. And that's part of our challenge, is the parties kind of determine where your remit or the parameters with which you can operate. And so what we've got to do is we've got to agree, this is what the community needs. How do we influence in the spheres that we're in? And that's why, that was my criticism of our old mates in the Labour Party, was when they cut off a wealth tax straight away. I thought, well, you know, you want to
didn't
tweak
align
it.
with the
No,
historic
and that
values of the
tweaking, and
day?
in my view, we want ambition. We don't just want to tweak on the sides and make little changes. We want real ambition. But again, that's us saying, well, that's where we're heading. And if you want to come, let's try and work out a way to go together. And that's what coalitions are all about, is you kind of reach some basic agreements.
So with the Greens, are you saying you're on a short leash, or no, they have given you full...
Oh, they've... Yeah, but the good thing about the Greens is, well, they know what I'm like. In fact, the fact that they reached out to me, I thought, oh, there are some crazy people in the world. Because I thought no one would ever invite me to their party, and the Greens said, yeah, come on, bro. And so we joined, and I think what we do really well is we're really robust. And we say, these are the things that we're this is the direction we're heading in. And all of us come from activist backgrounds. You know, in some places you've got people who've led major corporations. With us, we're the ones who are tied to trees. We're the ones who are out when there's nuclear frigates around about. We're in those little dinghies. We're the ones on the street about climate change. And those are the people that you have in the Greens. And that's why there's kind of this real wonderful energy and passion that kind of finds this amazing mass connection, and then you've got this, it just explodes beautifully. It's wonderful. It's great.
Off I go. You've got a question?
I want to talk about the future of Greens in South Auckland. How are you looking to increase the Pacific vote and mobilise Pacific voters?
Yeah, one of the reasons the Greens and I talked was because we knew in our hearts that our policies were the best for our people. But we had to be present. The Greens have often been known as an urban liberal party. So look at where we've done well. We've won seats in central areas, Auckland Central, Rongotai, Wellington Central. So we know that we've got a good base there. But we also know that the more we've started to talk about inequality, we're starting to reach Pacific communities, Indigenous communities. The more we start talking about Te Tiriti-centred approaches, we're reaching the Māori community. And so now we're starting to work out here. This is just the beginning of a real build of movement and a kind of a draw for everyone, so that they can see the Greens as a viable alternative. Because many of us have voted Labour. Like my mum struggled when she got to the voting booth, and I think she was like, I thought, Mum, are you having heart palpitations there? But she said, man, son, so I've never not voted Labour. And so we had to take time, and I thought, if my mum's struggling with that, then I know that there are people who are starting to think about that. And our job is to create that confusion, in the sense that we want people to say, I've always been here, but I'm going to be open to reading somebody else's manifesto. So my role is, well, one of the things I'm really intent on doing is building our base in South Auckland. We have to. If we are the party of the future, the party of climate change and economic justice, we've got to build out South.
It's very interesting talking about your mum's reaction and feeling so divided. When we talk about long-standing, especially our parents and grandparents who've always voted Labour, what do you put that feeling down to with mum and maybe across the older generation?
It's a bit like church. So we started off, mum started off Methodist, Samoan Methodist, dad was Efakasa. Dad, when they got married, they went to AOG, but that was really hard on them. They were leaving behind people they knew, facilities, amenity, and kind of safeties that they knew. And perhaps when it comes to voting, we always go with what we know. And what we know has often been Labour. This is inviting people to think about something different, and change is hard. Change is always difficult. And it's going to take time. I think the best people who are handling the change at the moment are our young people. Because, you know, my nephews and they have been saying to me, finally, Uncle, now you're with the Greens. We've been voting Greens, they didn't even tell me. They used to say to me, oh, no, we voted for you, Uncle. But really, now I realise they were voting Green this whole time. Yeah, lucky we're not allowed to love on them with our survey.
I always, I think it's always very interesting. You'll get people out and about and shouting from the rooftop, da 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 da, this is what I'm going to vote, yeah. But when you go to that booth, nobody else can see where you're going to vote. So it's like you may have been saying one thing, but then when it comes to the actual polling booth and that, young people, what interests you about politics? You're studying political science?
No, I'm not studying politics.
But what is your interest, and how do we increase the interest of our young Pasifika to engage more in the democratic process?
Definitely. I think first, young people need to understand that their voice is valuable. There definitely needs to be more work around meeting youth where they're at, as opposed to expecting youth to come to the booths, expecting youth to turn up. And I think that's something, you know, we talked a little bit about before. Party leaders and party policies need to meet youth where they're at. I think a lot of young people would be worried about their renters' rights, but after the outcome of this election, they'll be worried about the implications for the environment. You know, we've had a devastating year here in Aotearoa, but again, we also have our Pacific homelands in mind. I think a lot of young people don't realise that they are the energy. I think a lot of people are tired, but young people bring the fire, the passion for the future, and I think we will be seeing a lot of pressure on the new National and ACT coalition to deliver. I think one of the things that personally me as a young person that I'm going to be looking out for, will they deliver on lowering the cost of living? That was something that they were driving and pushing hard for, but we'll see in the next month or so, next 2 months. Things go down. And
I love that you share that about young people log vote, but I don't know, I want to ask to you if Anana, if you saw, do you think as a parent as well we do have a responsibility to teach our children to vote? Because I have 3 young boys, and so 8, 4 and 2, and when my firstborn was 2 years old, that's when we started voting together. So we make the election day a family day, trying to make them fall in love with voting and understanding why you vote, why we should vote. But do you believe it's also one of our responsibility as a parent to teach our kids, starting young, so by the time they get to Lofa's age, they're like, oh yeah, I know exactly what to do when I need to vote, and talk about the policies that they believe in and things like that?
Yeah, that's an excellent example what you share about doing it as a family. And then, even this year people were saying triple your vote by going with 3 friends, that kind of thing. So you're starting early. I know my daughters will vote because their dad's in politics, so it's going to be a natural progression. One of the things we used to do when I worked at the university, people will know about careers days, and you get people into the university because then it doesn't feel like it's this great big massive something abstract that exists over there in the world. I can access the university, and we've got to do similar things. We've got to bring everything closer, but we have to acknowledge too that the reality is, if we don't vote, and this is my message to young people, because I think people are making genuine efforts to get close to young people. That proximity, we've got to decrease it so that we're closer. But the flip side to that is, if we continue to not vote and continue to wait for everyone to get close to us, the world over there wins. And whilst we're scared about renters' rights and all of that, which are policies I inherently believe that the Greens held strong for our people, that's not what people voted for. In the end, the nation has gone for 50 seats for the National Party, and that's a clear indication that the people who are voting, what it tells us is when there's a lower voter turnout, it suits National better. When there's a higher voter turnout, it suits the left better. And we just got to accept that if we don't participate, we are allowing someone else to make a decision for me. Even if you're peed off about the way the world is, the more you say, nah, stuff it, the world just says, yeah, we'll just keep going. We will just keep manufacturing the system that we've got at the moment because you've decided, in a way, to disengage. So I think that it's a 2-pronged approach, which is one of the things that frustrates me, because I had heaps. How many young people's meetings I went to when running for the mayor, and when you look at the data, no one voted. And I thought, well, I busted my guts to get out there, but we've just got to, it's just picking up a pen. I met people who came to my meetings recently and they said, oh yes, I'm so glad you're here, all of them young people. We really wanted to vote for you. Half the time I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, so you dragged me out to your meeting in Henderson.
We really
wanted to vote for you. We really believe in you. We love hearing you speak. And then I just think, so we are busting our guts, some of us. And I said, you got to come. This is a deal, guys. We're doing our bit.
I think that's the difference. It's not popular. It's very there's only a select few of people in politics.
Exactly. Well, no, it was only supposed to be 5 minutes, but thank you for staying for nearly an hour. We really appreciate that.
I've got no one else to talk to at home. My wife's going, no, send this man away.
I'm sure there's another church service you can go.
Yeah. But anyone like me to come over and talk to them? Maybe Radio New Zealand. That's a joke. You guys are amazing.
No, you are amazing for staying on over 5 minutes. That's incredible.
Thank you so much.
Malo 34, thank you so much for joining us today also, and all the very best for your first tenure in Parliament. We really appreciate it. God bless to you and the family. Okay, let's pay some bills and then we'll be back. Justin will join us again. We're heading towards the final 20 minutes of our post-election special here on 531 PI.
531 PI aims to broadcast a high-quality program. If you believe standards have been breached and want to lodge a formal complaint, contact Pacific Media Network on 0800 763 342, complaints@pmn.co.nz, or by writing to PO Box 97601, Manukau, Auckland. Complaints must be lodged within 20 working days of the broadcast date. For information about New Zealand's broadcast code, check out the Broadcasting Standards Authority website, bsa.govt.nz.
There's a screening here tonight.
Free bowel cancer screening is available to people aged 60 to 74 years. You'll get a test kit in the mail every 2 years. It's an easy test you do at home.
Stick from the test, put it in the poo. Just follow the pictures, it's easy to do.
The test can detect bowel cancer early before you have any symptoms. So when you get it, just do it. It could save your life. For more information, go to timetobowelscreen.nz or talk to your doctor.
The Pacific Post-Election Special on 531 PI.
We're back with the team. Justin, thank you so much for coming back for our final talano. Just for our listeners, a few apologies from Whanoti Agnes Loheni from the National Party, as well as David Seymour, who was supposed to join us, and Angie Nicholas. But hey, such is the run of a live television. Wow, sort of like, hey, we're live online and live across our radio network. Justin, you've been listening into a few of the conversations we've been having, Talanoa. What some of your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it first of all raises so many interesting points, and I liked what he talked about, how we need to find ways to work together more and get more people involved in politics. We can't just sit back, and it's interesting. Just seeing these results and how many of our Pacific MPs have missed out, not just in Labour but also potentially in National, and so it does beg the question. If we want better outcomes, we have to be more involved.
Okay, another news bulletin now from the lovely Salote Toitu.
Whakalawhalai atu malo a Peter Brian. National is on course to form the next government after winning 50 seats, but National's campaign manager, Chris Bishop, says the party expects to lose at least one seat once special votes are counted. National and ACT together have 61 seats in a 121-seat parliament. This morning, the presumptive Prime Minister, Christopher Luxon, said he hadn't yet spoken to New Zealand First Leader Winston Peters.
This afternoon we'll bring our strategy team together and that'll be our chance to sort of think through the next steps over the next few days. But again, as I said last night, I was very appreciative of his remarks and his offer of help.
Labour suffered a severe defeat, winning just 34 seats compared to 65 in its massive landslide in 2020. Kelston MP Carmel Sepuloni told the PMN post-election special that there were a range of factors to blame for Labour's defeat, including the high cost of living.
Of course that affects our people, and we know it intimately when we're Pacific MPs, because these aren't just statistics. These are our families and our communities. Certainly the anxieties and uncertainty that came about post-COVID, we could see that particularly for us that are Auckland MPs and for Aucklanders.
The Greens had their finest ever election result, winning 14 seats, including 3 electorate seats. One of its new MPs will be Whaanana Efeso Collins, who was wrapped over the election result. Malo. Whaanana joins Te Anau Tuiono, who has made it back into Parliament.
Malo Opito, thank you so much, Kalo. I think we are going to be joined very shortly, if not now, by Angie Nicholas, a National Party candidate for Te Atatu. Kia orana, Angie, you're joining us. Kia orana, kia orana.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much, Angie, for joining us today. It's still very tight, but your reaction at the results from last night?
Yeah, pure excitement, I think. Even still right now, myself and the team are quite excited, obviously, to see the turn. And it's been a long time since this has happened here in Te Atatu, so just really excited to see what's going on.
Kia ora, Angie, or kia rana. Obviously, beating Phil Twyford is quite an achievement. It's obviously still preliminary results, but how do you feel just about what you've achieved, in this short space of time?
Well, I guess those things around who it is, who your opponent is, doesn't really come to mind when you're on a campaign trail. I know that we do look at our opponents, who they are, and what we need to do really to win the electorate. But I feel like it really is a game against the polls itself, where you just go out and you give it your absolute best, making sure that you're fighting for every single vote.
Kia ora, Angie. Hi, how are you?
Kia ora, how are you? Yeah, good.
Oh my gosh, my mind's just gone blank. I wanted to ask about Pacific representation in Parliament. Obviously, we still have the special votes to come, and you'll be watching keenly. How do you feel about that? Are you hopeful? Because it doesn't look likely for Whanoti Agnes Lohini, which means things will be riding on you and your place in national.
Yeah. And we've always sort of said we knew that it was going to be a tight race. I mean, sitting in my position in a red Labour seat that's been held for such a long time by Labour MPs, I'm really, really aware of obviously the challenge of number one before the results came out, of even winning that and trailing ahead of Twyford, as those results came through. But we would love to see, I'd love to be in Parliament. I'd love to see Whanoti there, Agnes Lohini as well. But it really is, we've done the work that we can, and it is in the hands of the public. So we prepare for both results or outcomes, whether we get in or not.
If you do get into government, how are you going to deal with a coalition partner who wants to get rid of the Ministry of Pacific Peoples? How are you going to navigate that?
Yeah, we've been really, really clear as a party, and our leader itself, Chris Luxon, has said that's not our position, that is ACT's position. And of course, you'd need to work alongside your colleagues, with ACT to talk that through. But we've made our position pretty clear, and I agree with that as well.
Angie, if you do get in, will you be putting your hand up for the next Minister of Pacific Peoples?
Well, I'm pretty sure you'd probably have to work that out with the leader. As a first timer, I'm actually not too sure in terms of the process, but I would love to be able to obviously represent and be the voice of Pacific people as a minister, but can't say anything at this point in time.
Angie, you've obviously run a really good campaign. What's been some of the highlights, and what are some of the things that you may have learnt and didn't expect to happen over this last 6 weeks?
I really think that being a candidate, like people have said to me, there's just a clear change. I notice a difference between when you started to where you are at this point in time. So it really does mold you and build you as a person, and it definitely adds to your character. But some highlights, I've really enjoyed learning more about Te Atatu. just the backstory, the history, meeting people, just learning about the different suburbs and where they've grown up. That's probably been the biggest highlight for me, is actually connecting with people in the community. And I never knew actually how much I didn't know about Te Atatu until I stepped into this role as a candidate.
So Angie, you've got a 30 vote advantage right now. Have you been given any indication when those final results will come in? And what do you know of the booths that are, or the special votes? Do you have any sense of which way they might go?
I actually don't know at this point in time. Obviously, we're remaining optimistic as to, hopefully it would fall in our favour. But I guess it's just another waiting game again, to see those results once they come through.
Angie, has Christopher Luxon given you a call yet? What was that conversation like?
Not yet, but we will be going through some inductions, so I'm sure at some point in time. I think most people have probably tried to take a little bit of a break this morning. Actually, I was up quite early this morning on an interview, but I think most of us really just want a little bit of a breather. It has been a really good and hard campaign, so I'm sure that most people will probably be doing that.
Angie, with potentially the largest, biggest Pasifika cohort for National in its history, what does that do in terms of the traditional view of National Party being male, pale and stale? And what does it mean for our Pacific people moving forward, taking seats and votes away from Labour?
I think it's a positive step for Pacific people to see that representation. And people have said, look, we want to see you in the National Party. So the only way, most people say, look, representation means so much to us. And so to have a Pacific person within any party really, but to see that in the National Party is such a positive step, I think. And I'm just incredibly proud of not just obviously where I've been, but also of the other amazing candidates that I've walked this journey with over the last few months.
One more question from me, Angie.
Sure.
National do not have any specific policies aimed at serving Pacific people. Is this a mistake?
No, I don't think it's a mistake, but it may be something in the future to look at. But I think it's actually quite positive. We've said been quite openly over the campaign that there are some major issues that we need to deal with, and we've outlined that over the last few months. And we think, it doesn't matter, for example, with the cost of living. It doesn't matter whether you're Pacific or non-Pacific. We are all going through this together. And so we want to make sure that the road ahead in terms of delivery and outcome, that we're getting that to every single person.
Finally, Angie, for all the people that voted for you in Te Atatu and to all your supporters, what's the message?
Oh, thank you. It's plain and simple. I'm just so incredibly thankful to everyone who has supported me, who has volunteered by me, but who has also voted as well. And so thank you very much.
Me taki mata, Angie Nicholas, National Party candidate in Te Atatu. Thank you so much, and all the best for the special votes in that. Thank you, dear.
Thank you. Me taki.
Me taki maata.
Take.
Well, nearly time to close. Have we got another bulletin to go, Kalo? Or?
I believe, number 5. I think that's the last one.
Shall we do that? And then we'll come back for some final thoughts and wrap up for our post-election special.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, Marlo, we only got the 5 minutes. Read fast, Kalo. Go.
The National Party is on course to form the next government. The party strategists are meeting this afternoon to decide on their next steps. With the votes counted so far, National have won 50 seats, Labour 34, the Greens 14, ACT are on 11 seats, New Zealand First are on 8 seats, and Te Pāti Māori have 4 seats. National and ACT together have 61 seats in a 121-seat parliament. And this morning, the presumptive Prime Minister Christopher Luxon said he hadn't yet spoken to New Zealand First Winston Peters.
This afternoon we'll bring our strategy team together and that'll be our chance to sort of think through the next steps over the next few days. But again, as I said last night, I was very appreciative of his remarks and his offer of help.
Labour suffered a severe defeat, winning just 34 seats compared to 65 in its massive landslide in 2020. Kelston MP Carmel Sepuloni told the PMN post-election special that there were a range of factors to blame for Labour's defeat, including the high cost of living.
Of course that affects our people, and we know it intimately when we're Pacific MPs, because these aren't just statistics, these are our families and our communities. Certainly the anxieties and uncertainty that came about post-COVID, we could see that, particularly for us that are Auckland MPs and for Aucklanders.
The Greens had their finest ever election result, winning 14 seats, including 3 electorate seats. One of its new MPs will be Whaanana Efeso Collins. One of the most engaging figures in the election was Kyle Mokaraka of the Vision New Zealand Freedom Party. Mokaraka gained notoriety by imposing his presence on events by Chris Hipkins and Christopher Luxon. He told the PMN post-election special that the campaign was an eye-opener.
I knew things were bad in our communities, especially in Pēmea or Tahuhu, but I didn't know they were that bad. So I think they're a lot worse given the climate that we've got at the moment, just with our people.
Thank you, Kalo. Well, that's our final bulletin, and we'll do a final round of final thoughts before we sign off for the day. Kalo?
Oh, I'm still trying to wake up now because I've been here since 5 o'clock.
We don't want to hear your excuses. We just want to hear your final thoughts.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just waking up now. Hey! My final thoughts, go the All Blacks. Go the All Blacks.
Oh my God. Go Fiji. Go Fiji. Young person representing all the young people today, Lofa.
Yeah, I guess people voted for change, and time for change has been like a heavy cloud in this year's election. But I just want to say I think Labour definitely threw in the towel a lot earlier than, and I feel like they've given up on young people and Pacific people with the results of this election. And,
Yeah, I guess this is probably my 3rd or 4th election as a journalist. Maybe more, I can't remember. But yeah, it's been interesting. It probably hasn't been the most exciting campaign. Look back at some of the, certainly that when Kim.com was running, that things were a little bit hectic then. The Jacinda elections had a bit of a mania about them. But this has been a different. There's obviously been. It's been close. It's looked like it was going to be close, and turned out it wasn't in the end. So that's been really interesting. And I guess what's been, probably the most probably the saddest aspect is just seeing how race became a real issue during this election. And I think it really it's on us as people who non-white people to probably we need to be more active in politics, because the more we hold back, the more we sit back, the more we'll get spoken for. And so that's been one reflection. But but it's been a lot of fun doing it here at PMM. Trying to, with my column, mix in hip-hop into political columns has been something I've enjoyed. I don't think anyone read them, but
no, I read
if you pass on the link or email it, I've got a lot of emails,
okay,
but just send the link. Send the link.
You'll see all my predictions didn't happen.
Sure.
So that was good. But I had one question for Lofa. Actually, this is your first election as a journalist, because I'm sure you've been following them closely from the birth, of course. But as a journalist now, getting paid to do it, what's been a highlight for you?
I think
from it.
Just going off what you said about how Pacific people need to be more engaged, I think we should take notes from our Māori brothers and sisters. One highlight for me is they really showed up and showed out, and it's been reflected in, they've won 6 out of 7
Make it quick.
Māori electorates, but also a huge win for Hannah Maipi Clark, who is now the youngest
in 170 years.
Which is something to be celebrated, and I think that's also a reflection of our tangata whenua whānau, but highlight for me probably having people to lean on, having this awesome A team to.
A for available.
A for available.
We've got to wrap it up because our PMN Solomon. So quickly, Justin
Okay,
Lateef.
well, I just want to say the PMN team has done an enormous job this election. I know Brian's probably got some thanks coming, but Brian particularly has interviewed almost every Pacific candidate, plus everyone else who was trying to get a Pacific vote, plus our newsroom, behind the scenes. There's a lot been happening. We've done hundreds of pieces of content on this election.
Yeah, led by Justin.
Yes.
And all of us.
Okay,
And so,
good. Praise the Lord. Teamwork makes the dream
Brian,
work. Thank you. Justin, Lofa, Kalo, Brian, and of course the team behind the scenes. Samson, Reza, of course the one and only, the Samoan Tiger. Yes, let's pay the bill. Thank you so much for joining us, and God bless. Enjoy the rest of your day. Okay, come on. Yay, hold on. Yay.
Bringing you all the breakdowns from the elections 2023. This is the Pacific Post-Election Special on 531 PI.